It's time for our monthly Ask the Mayor segment. I'm joined, as I am every month, by Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan. Hi, good morning, Miss Mayor.
Good morning, Ann. Good to be with you.
Good to be with you. And as usual, she is here to take your calls and questions. You can reach us at 904-549-2937. You can also email First Coast Connect at wjct.org, tag us on Facebook or at FCC on Air on X. I actually want to start with something you did, I think, yesterday alongside the fire chief,
Mm.
which is going door to door in a neighborhood that was recently impacted by a fire. What were you guys doing?
Well, we've had about 3 or 4 of these things in just the past several days. And so it's that time of year where people leave a lot of things plugged in. They don't necessarily pay attention to a dry Christmas tree that may be, easily set afire. Um, it's just a good time to remind people about their smoke detectors and about their carbon monoxide detectors and all those things that they need to have and pay attention to as we head into the colder months of the year. But during the holidays, I think um, so many people are just not focused on that stuff. And so you end up having a lot of issues, whether it's a space heater or whether it's a holiday tree or whatever it is. It becomes an issue. And we've just had a lot of recently, we've had several deaths and we've had several firefighters injured, and so it's serious. We want to really draw attention to the fact that there are some very simple things you can do to make sure that you are fire safe.
And you were giving out like smoke detectors and
Well, no, we give out free smoke detectors to people that need them. If people call 630 City, we can provide free smoke detectors. What we were doing is we were handing out a kit, basically of resources that are available to people if they need them, and reminders of what they should be doing, changing those detectors batteries twice a year. Some people put them in until they start beeping like crazy. They don't think about them, but you need to really change them twice a year. Just the little things that people may not be thinking about, and that's really what it was about, just raising awareness. The neighborhood seemed to appreciate it. Interesting thing about that house that went up the other day that we were at yesterday. That was known as the Christmas house. I don't know if you remember that back
yeah.
years ago, and I spoke with the daughter of the gentleman who was very badly injured, and he was the one that for 30 years created this huge Christmas display out in front of the house, and we would go out and cover it. So it was a house that was
At the news
familiar to
station.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you hate to see all that happen, and obviously causes so much grief for the families. But a couple of steps, and it might not, be something that we don't know what caused that one. But a lot of times it's something pretty simple.
I want to get to local stuff, but I also, because you're so deeply enmeshed in the world of healthcare, both through your personal experiences and your foundation and
Hmm.
fundraising, I just kind of wanted to get your take on this, the killing of this United Healthcare
Mm.
CEO,
Oh,
and really just kind of the public reaction to the
yeah.
news of it.
Honestly, Anne, I'm so dismayed with the whole of the social media world these days. I really almost don't go on aside from to post things I need to post or to post my sunrise pictures or whatever. It is really amazing to me. I know there are a lot of people who are hurting because healthcare is expensive and a lot of people don't feel like they have what they need. But at the end of the day, to see people celebrate someone getting shot is shocking to me. And I guess nothing should really shock me anymore. But it's and to see that sort of get accepted, that was really a tough one for me to see. I don't think obviously that is the way, but it certainly does speak to people's frustrations, and I do get that. I do get that people feel very separated from solutions, and that's why we focus so heavily on it here. But I'll tell you, boy, that was just a tough one to watch.
On a very local issue, zoning overlays. So you recently signed a bill into law that would make it tougher for the city council to override a zoning overlay, which is typically applied when a community wants certain restrictions. It's been overridden before, memorably just recently on the South Bank,
Yeah.
where they voted to allow this storage unit facility combined with an apartment complex when storage units were specifically prohibited by the overlay.
Right. Yeah. And I don't want to say that this legislation was specifically related to that. It really wasn't. We've talked about it for a while because it's just so easy to just take that vote and remove what the voters have said that they want, what the communities have said that they want. And so I liked the legislation that Matt Carlucci came up with. Joe Carlucci, his son, came up with a modification that would allow it to pass. So it's basically just the addition of one vote, but that does make it more difficult to override the will of people that have really put some time into thinking what they do and don't want in their communities.
And that, in this case, though, would have reversed or prevented that storage facility because that only passed by a single vote, 10 to 9.
It did, but I do think in that situation, unless I'm remembering the wrong way, I do think there were a lot of modifications made to that, which made it more palatable to people in that community. So I don't know that as many people were really against it by the time that it passed. And frankly, that's what you'd like to see if there are going to be those situations where you have a developer that will come and actually work with the community to give them what they want, maybe come up with something that's beneficial to both. But yeah, you're right. In its current form, you're right. That wouldn't have passed.
We're talking to Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan. It's our monthly Ask the Mayor segment, and we are taking your calls and questions. You can reach us at 904-549-2937 or email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. We have a call from Lydia Bell in Brentwood. Good morning, Lydia.
Good morning.
Good morning, Lydia.
Good morning. Yes. Good morning, Mayor Deegan and Ann. Two things were on your desk when you took office: the liquor store in Brentwood and the medical examiner to morgue and forensic lab. You stepped in as our leader and purchased the liquor store. You righted that wrong, but turn around and sanction and support the illegal building of a 300-body morgue. Why have you abandoned your constituents in Brentwood? You are our leader. Death does not belong in our neighborhood, and we have been totally fighting against this. We want a Brentwood skill center, not a Brentwood kill center. We're alive in Brentwood. How can you support us in stopping this morgue and bringing life, a skill center in place for that building?
Well, I will say, Lydia, that I can't say much about this because, as you know, there's a lawsuit against the city, and I'm not allowed to comment on issues that are under lawsuit. I will simply say to you that the liquor store was a much simpler path in terms of being able to purchase that and turn it into really what will be a wonderful resource for small businesses. But the medical examiner's office was much further down the road and a much more in-depth project. Uh, I can't really say much beyond that at this point until the lawsuit is resolved. But I think by my actions on a number of fronts that I have been somebody who has really listened very closely to that community and has done the very best I can to make sure we get more eyeballs and more resources to that community. So I am very sorry about the frustration over this, and we'll see where everything goes legally.
All right. We've got a call from Stanley on the north side. Good morning, Stanley. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning to everybody,
Morning.
especially the mayor here. And the mayor, I voted for you, and I support Miss Bell, by the way. I'm calling by the African American Advisory Board.
Yeah.
I am disappointed by the people who are spearheading the advisory board here, because it's not fair and balanced, and it's not concerned about the African American community. And plus, in closing, you have a bunch of nonprofit running the organization. I mean, running the board. My main concern is the fact that when it comes to subject matter experts that know about community development are not on the board. And I put in to be on the board. And I am the most civic engaged African American in this city. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the phone call. We got many, many applications for folks who wanted to be on that advisory board, and we had a fairly large group of folks that went through it and tried to cull it down to various different folks that we thought could represent different segments of the community. And I know that that's never going to be popular when somebody gets left off when they really wanted to be on the board. But that board will not stay static forever. There will be a point at which more people can serve. But I think the folks that are there really do have their heart in it and are excited about providing guidance to the mayor's office and to the council.
We got a call from someone who I don't believe wanted to join the conversation on air, but had a question. And I'm not sure if I understand it fully, but perhaps you do. He's wondering if the city plans on reducing the speed limit in the morning and afternoon during rush hour. And it doesn't indicate where he would be talking about.
Yeah, I don't I don't know about that. If that is something that is in the works, it's not something that's crossed my desk at this point.
Okay. We also have a question from Scott. He emailed, please give us an update on the septic tank situation. Says there are houses on or near waterways that have pipes from the septic tanks emptying into the waterway. Says that's on the south side somewhere.
Well, I would certainly love to know where that is, what we have done, because obviously that is, one of my priorities was to move that faster, and I'm grateful to say that Vicky Cavey over at JEA shares my belief that we need to work as quickly as we can on that front, and we're moving as fast as we can. But those areas where there are actually issues along the water, where there are things that are being put into the water, we absolutely need to know that. So if this is not something we are aware of, please make sure that you call 630 City and make us aware of that, or you can even contact my office, and we'll make sure that that gets passed along. Because if there's something that's actually dumping wastewater into the river, we don't want that.
Sure. Although I guess septic's indirectly kind of that's the reason to phase them out, right? Is that that's a
Well, it
pollutant
is
problem.
absolutely, but obviously you have tiers of priority there, and the ones that are actually leaching into the river or into into the estuaries, whatever it is. I mean, that would be priority number one, and that's where we have focused heavily our attention. So if we may not be aware of that.
Yeah, sure. We've got a call from Ron in Beauclair. Good morning, Ron. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my
Hi,
call.
Ron.
Mayor, I love your leadership.
Thank you.
Here's my issue that I've been dealing with for several years, and that's regarding what the St. John's Water Management District in 2004 suggested in terms of water restrictions. We have just invested a lot of money to bring water from Black Creek to Lake Brooklyn. In 2009, the city of Jacksonville enacted an ordinance that reinforced in terms of what the St. John's Water Management District suggested in terms of 2 days a week, except this time of year when it's 1 day a week. And in that ordinance are fines. So the first violation is a warning, the second is $50, the third is $250. I personally showed up at a city council meeting for public remarks. I spoke to the issue. I had a Melissa Long come up to me afterwards. She and I spoke. I've spoken with people at the St. John's Water Management District. But bottom line, it's kind of like going out there on Interstate 95. We can post speed limit signs, but if nobody's going to enforce them, then it becomes a mute issue. I don't see where anything has ever been enforced. I think it could be a revenue source for the city if we hired somebody part-time, go out between 6 and 9 in the morning and just go through neighborhoods, and you will see how many people are violating those water restrictions.
Ron, I'll check into that because it is important. I mean, water is a precious resource for us, and those limits are there for a reason. And I'm sure that people have a million reasons why sometimes their water gets left on or is on at the wrong times. We recently had to reset our sprinklers because when we lost power, the sprinklers set to a different time, so we had to have somebody come out and show us how to reset our sprinklers because we're not very handy.
Right.
But did that, because we want to make sure that we do the proper thing. But I agree with Ron. I mean, I think I don't know what those numbers are in terms of enforcement. I don't know how much money has been brought in from that, but I will certainly check. And I think I understand your frustration, and I think it makes a lot of sense to make sure that folks are. It also helps with awareness, because if you're not telling people all the time, they may forget, or you may get new people that don't know
Or may not know how to reset their sprinkler.
yeah, or may not know how to reset their sprinklers.
Right. We have a call from Eric in Arlington. Good morning, Eric. Go ahead.
Good morning. Some of the fallout is already occurring from climate change, and it's coming in the form of insurance costs. My homeowner's insurance has been skyrocketing over the past, since DeSantis has been in office. It's now more than my actual mortgage payment, the insurance. And State Farm is about to drop me, and I'm not really sure what I'm going to do. I don't know if this is a ploy to try to get my house or what, but these insurance parasites have been courted by Ron DeSantis. He won't even let people talk about, say the words climate change in any sort of government documents, any state government documents. Can anything be done locally about this terrible problem that's being completely ignored by the Republican Party? Thanks for taking my call.
Well, thanks for the call. I mean, obviously, when it comes to insurance issues, that's very largely a function of the state. But we do obviously locally take a very strong opinion and strong view about making sure that we have a resilient community and making sure that we are doing everything that we can to protect ourselves and our homes from climate change. One of the things is that 50-year resilient plan that we've come up with that will basically be a roadmap for how things are zoned, where things are built, to make sure that people aren't really in the path of what will be rising seas and protect what we have. So locally, we do very much have a strong focus on that. In terms of insurance rates, we don't have a lot of unfortunately, we don't have a lot of control over that.
Yeah, I want to ask you too. I mean, the impact of storm damage, insurance
Yeah.
rates, taxes, impacts of climate change is really starting to show up in some of parts of Florida in the housing market.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Ann, and this is a frustration for people I know in Northeast Florida. If you take a look at where 90% of those storms hit, it's not here. And yet, I think folks here feel like their insurance rates have gone up in a way that would suggest that we have been hit a lot more than we have. So you can understand in communities that seem to be in the bullseye over and over again, where insurance companies might cost more to insure there. Here we haven't had that issue. So I feel like in high risk areas, you can see why they would be somewhat higher. But I think for Jacksonville, I can understand why people have some frustration there. We haven't been hit by a major hurricane here since Dora. You can't count Irma. You can't. I mean, and
Because it
Matthew.
wasn't really a hurricane when it hit. It
Well,
just came through.
well, but we'll still see our rates go up some from that. But at the end of the day, no direct hit. If you look at the billions of dollars that some of these storms have cost in South Florida and on the Panhandle, we just haven't seen that type of damage here, thank God. But yet we still suffer from these very high insurance rates, and people are very frustrated about it. It's sort of, you dovetail that, with the affordable housing crisis, and people are extraordinarily frustrated by it, as you can hear.
I guess what I'm wondering though is if in fact there is this downturn in terms of, home values because of all of these challenges that people are facing, is that does that present any kind of opportunity for the city given the shortage of housing? I mean, how do you see the city responding to a market downturn if it happens in terms of tax revenues or
Right.
just in terms of the availability of perhaps additional housing?
Well, look, we have to sort of brace every year for what's going to happen in Tallahassee in terms of how we can use those revenues and how much of that we can receive. But at the end of the day, that's why we have been so very focused. I think we're the first city that has taken general funds to support affordable housing. For the first city in Florida, I think that's done that. Um, it's the first time I know in Jacksonville. But very few cities will take general revenue funds and put them into affordable housing. We've done that because we feel like it's necessary to increase. Bottom line is we have to increase the number of affordable housing units. We're 35,000, you know, in underneath water with our affordable housing units. So we are working very hard to create a number of different paths to home ownership and to help alleviate some of these costs that people have in some of the pilot programs that we've had and the things that we're working on now in the city. But we're expecting 4,000 of those units to come online, very shortly. So we're working hard to try to create more inventory. So it's a matter of inventory. It's a matter of zoning, making sure that we create a zoning code that helps with better density. Um, and we just have to keep giving people tools in any way that we can locally. But as I said, a lot of these things in terms of insurance rates are not under our
Local
control.
decisions,
Yeah.
yeah. If you're just joining us, we're talking to Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan as our part of our monthly Ask the Mayor segment, and we've got a call from Rick in downtown. Good morning, Rick. Go ahead.
Yes, good morning. How are you? I voted for the man. I'll vote for her again. My question is, around Jacksonville, there's a lot of construction. You got 95, you got 10. Is there a way that we can please, man, keep Jacksonville updated when these projects will finally be completed, please? That's my question. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Again, Rick, we do have a lot of construction, and a lot of it is really good stuff. In terms of the interstates, it's just another one of those things. I hate to say we can't control what DOT does, but we can't. So some of those things, we have to take what we get in terms of timing on those projects. And I know that there are some that are way overdue, but I think they're doing the best they can at this point.
Yeah, and Rick, I would direct you to our colleague here at WJCT. Dan Scanlon does a lot of transportation reporting. He almost always has the latest information. You can find his reporting on the Jacksonville Today website, and so it may have some information for you about I-10 and I-95. We're touching on the issue of housing, and so I do want to ask you about homeless enforcement now that
Mhm.
that new law is taking
Yep.
effect. What can you tell us about where enforcement stands? How many people have been contacted or arrested? Uh,
Yeah. So our path team that is manned by the JFRD just started working on November the 23rd. That's the providing assistance to homelessness team that goes out along the streets to make people aware of food insecurity services, any sort of services, mental health services, other things that are available to them in terms of substance abuse, places to find shelter, all those things. Um, those people have been out since the 23rd, 24/7. And so from what I understand, they have begun to mitigate some of the other, things that we've seen before that. The sheriff's office started to enforce October 1st because that's when the law went into effect. I want to remind people there is now a law in effect that was passed in Tallahassee that makes it illegal for anyone to sleep on the street. So we have to get people into these shelters and services that are available to
because
them.
the city can be sued if it doesn't enforce that law?
Absolutely, we can be sued and will be sued if we do not enforce that law. So we also have a process through that path team of holding people's belongings. We're working on a place for pets. It's a process, right? If you recall, in my budget, I proposed $10 million to fund a lot of additional housing units for people to create partnerships to make that happen. A lot of different funding for wraparound services. That was reduced quite a bit by council, but we're working towards it. We've got $1 million for that JFRD initiative and 1.3 million for the shelters at this point. But what we know is that JSO since October 1st has I think warned 448 people. And we think we have about 500 at any given time that are on the streets, but that's a lot of people who have been warned
Are
since.
those individuals or the number of warnings perhaps that went to the same person more than
That I
once?
don't know. I know that these are the numbers they gave us, 448 warnings since October 1st. Number of arrests since November 1st, 52. Uh, and JFRD has had about 150 contacts since the PATH team went into action on November the 23rd.
And have you asked the sheriff to track those people who are arrested in terms of how long they're in jail or what that costs the city to house them for the period of their incarceration?
I'm sure we'll have those numbers. I don't think we have anything yet, but I'm sure we'll have those numbers. Um, I will also tell you that one of the things that JFRD is finding is that a lot of people they are contacting that are on the streets are not from here. And so we have a homeward bound program where, for instance, there was one woman who, through her driver's license, we found that she was from Vero Beach. She has family in Vero Beach, and we were able to get her back there where her family is. And that's part of the process as well. This homeward bound program of getting people back to where their own communities are. Why they ended up in Jacksonville or how I don't know, but that's part of the whole plan is to get them back where they came from.
Yeah, I mean, I would venture to say that there's some people in the homeless advocacy community that maybe don't think that sending people away with bus tickets is any kind of solution to homelessness.
There is a lot of this that I don't particularly love, Anne, but this is where we are. We have a law that we have to comply with, and what we are trying to do is move as quickly as we can toward a process that would allow us to get people the wraparound services they need, have the shelter they need while they're getting these services, and then step them into a situation where they can become positive, contributing members of Jacksonville. That's what we want. We want these people to have successful lives. Many of them have additional issues that have to be addressed. The cities that have been most successful with this are cities that have found a way to 24/7 have these intake situations where people can get the services they need. In terms of sending people into the communities where they come from, I know that's probably not the most popular thing, but look, at the end of the day, you have so many resources for the citizens of your city, and if people are either being bused here or somehow are here and they'd rather go home to be closer to family, I think that's just one resource we have. I don't know that it's the largest resource.
I'll be interested in our future discussions to talk a little bit about, what those costs are
Yeah.
and whether that is shaping people's feelings about that law. I want to talk about Laura Street Trio briefly because
Mhm.
that is a project that appears back on, off. But at this point, there are active negotiations. You met last Monday with the new developer's lawyer,
Yep.
and
We met with them. We met with the new we met with, Paul Bertozzi, and his lawyers, and frankly, both parties have come to terms on the lien waiver agreement. So, um, what we're doing right now is we're waiting for Live Oak, and that is Paul's entity. We're waiting on Live Oak to tell us that we can move forward. That is because there's also another process that has to take place, and there has to be, what we did is we tried to put several dates in place that this has to happen by this date and this has to happen by this date, and that's how we can hold off that lien. But at the end of the day, we have to wait until he tells us it's okay to move forward, and that means the purchase agreement has to be done.
and we should say that one of the directives in that would be to at least start some construction by the end of next year.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And what we're hoping is to what we have initially discussed is landing on the end of this year for having an agreement in place, a sales agreement in place, and that's the thing that we're waiting to see, where exactly that is.
Just a half a minute left here, but we have a question from Martha on Facebook asking about the village of Mayport. Does it have a mayor? I've always loved the area. Is there a plan to develop, or how is it managed?
And Mayport is in Atlantic Beach, so it is part of Atlantic Beach, and it's managed by the Atlantic Beach mayor,
Yeah, and it is a
Curtis Ford.
neat historic community.
It is
Really.
absolutely.
All right. Well, Mayor Donna Deegan, I know you've got other things to do this morning. Thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Anne.
All right.